Yeah, that's his normal call sign for his social media. Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Hope you're well. Hope your families are well.
There you
There you
go.
go.
Where can people find you, Kenny?
KCEESQ, IG, TikTok, Twitter.
There
It's
you-
all on there somewhere.
And he gives out little nuggets.
Nuggeting.
Yes.
Nuggeting.
He's
Like
nuggeting.
nuggets.
Yeah.
Nuggeting.
Nuggets are little pieces of golden information, but when one is nuggeting,
Yeah.
they are dishing out. It's the verb. They're dishing out golden information to our listeners.
We're dishing out golden information. What do you call the information that the most powerful man in the world and the richest man in the world are dishing right now on their social media platforms?
Hate.
That's just hate.
Hate.
They're just
Yeah.
bad.
Chaos.
Have you ever seen anything like that?
Just mess.
Nope. But
mess.
rich, wealthy people are different these days.
Not just because they're wealthy?
Well, I mean, when
They
you're-
get away with
They
it.
get away with
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? They get attention. The news is all over. You're talking about it. You know, it's what rich people do. They get attention and you give it to them.
Well, can we pay attention to this rich person right here? Dean
Yeah.
Weissman's in the
Yeah. There's we're going to get around to Ken. We're talking about because Ken. Well, let's set it up here. Your specialty, your area of concentration in the law is criminal defense.
Yes, sir.
And in furtherance of that, you spent a lifetime practicing and perfecting that through what areas? Where were you? Where did you cut your teeth in the law?
So I started 96 in the Philadelphia Public Defender's Office. I was there 96 to 02. 02 to 08, I went to the Federal Public Defender's Office right here in the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. Trial attorney there, trial attorney in the city. Went out on my own after that for about 10 years, partnered up with you for a couple years. You tried to teach me the civil world, didn't really catch, but I appreciate the efforts.
Some are made for civil and some are made for criminal. And you found your lane and you've been staying in it.
And staying in it.
Done
Hopefully
well.
doing well, representing the people. I actually went to law school to be a public defender. I saw folks that didn't have any money, not getting the representation I thought they deserved. So that's why I went to law school. And going to the Philadelphia office was the best decision I ever made. One of the best, certainly back then, in the entire country. And that's where I learned to be an attorney and more specifically to be a Philadelphia lawyer.
Was the great Ben Lerner there at the time?
He was.
Yeah.
He was still there. I take that back. He may have already been on the bench by the time I got there.
Okay.
But greats like Harvey Booker was still there. Greats like Thurgood Matthews, Dean Owens, Everett Gillison, Byron Houston, they were there. And that's who I learned under.
Wins are few and far between in the
most.
federal system.
Certainly in the Feds.
What is it you do if you don't win? What is a win in the federal system?
A win could be any number of things. A win could be getting charges dropped. A win could be getting gradings of charges reduced. A win could be getting jail sentences drastically reduced. A win could be getting a not guilty on charges. A win could be not getting a not guilty on all charges. A win could be making sure that the family understands and is communicated to and is treated with respect and the empathy that they deserve.
Absolutely. And so, I would venture to guess on most of your cases you had a win because, good lawyering as a criminal defense attorney, as you said, sometimes means acknowledging the fact that you're going to go to jail, but bringing to the attention of the fact finder, whether it's a jury or a judge, the things that mitigate that crime, that puts you in the best light possible so that the sentence is a fair and just sentence for what was done.
And that starts with listening to, understanding, empathizing with, and fighting for your client. It doesn't matter what the mountain is. They want you in there fighting for them. This is their life. This is their family's lives. This is their community's lives. They want somebody who will fight for them.
And I can say with absolute certainty that that's Ken Edelin.
He's going to fight.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Got anything to do with that Morehouse and Howard Pass?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And
That's
at
where you
Omega
learn.
Phi Psi.
That's where you
That's
learn.
that's where you learn.
That's where you learn.
He only wears purple.
Purple.
Yeah.
I got a gold hat on. From purple and gold.
Okay. He is the purple king. His cigars are purple.
Yeah.
Sometimes I see Ken, smoking a little stogie in the morning.
No,
Smoking in your parking lot.
Yeah.
Purple cigar.
Me too.
You sure there's cigars
That was
that
our
purple?
Absolutely.
That was our
Only
breakfast cigar.
That was our breakfast.
Yeah. 215-227-2727. Folks, if you've got a legal issue, today's the day to give us a call. We love our callers. We will do our very best to get you on the line. And also, welcome to our YouTube viewers.
Morning.
We've got listeners. We've got viewers. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you very much. Tell your friends and family. I'm trying to grow the YouTube channel to match our terrestrial radio channel. There you go.
Well said.
Yeah. You can find us on YouTube on the MyPhillyLawyer page. So just go surfing over to the MyPhillyLawyer page, click on the live feed, and you get to watch us and hear us at the same time. And we will do our best to answer questions posed by our viewers as well. All right.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
Those of us who have a face best suited for radio, how am I adapting to this new world of YouTube video? Just do what I can. Huh?
Yeah, you do the best you can, Ken. Our viewers are very accommodating.
Thank
so,
you. I
yeah.
appreciate that. I need all the accommodation I can get.
I'll ask a question. I know a viewer wants to know: Do bad people deserve defense?
Absolutely. Everybody.
But they're
deserves
bad people.
But I'm not their moral compass. I'm not their moral judge. My job is to protect their legal rights. My job is
Even
to make
bad
sure.
people.
That's presuming they're bad.
Right.
And that's not my job to do. My
Somebody
job is
somebody else's job is going to do that
later.
Okay.
Whenever they get to whoever their maker is, whoever their creator is, whatever they believe, they'll deal with their moral issue.
Right.
My job is to make sure the government didn't overreach. My job is to make sure the government treated them fairly, equally, equitably.
And everyone deserves that day
Absolutely.
in court, regardless of
Absolutely.
status.
That is the reason I went to the public defender's office.
You remember the saying that we would rather see 99 guilty men go free than one innocent man be prosecuted and convicted, and that's changing in this world as we see immigrants who are not immigrants. They're folks born here. Okay, they have got a birth certificate and a driver's license and a social security card, but their skin color and maybe their accent makes them look and seem like they're different than others, and they're being hauled off without due process, and they're being placed in prisons around the world. That's a scary thought.
Now, can you see that and say what?
But I'm also going to expand Dean's statement to not just not locking up anybody or convicting anybody who's innocent, but also making sure those who don't have the financial resources to go out and hire 7 and 10 attorneys like Puffy may have done, that they get the competent, the zealous representation in court that we all deserve. And that's what I try to communicate to the jurors. If you had a loved one sitting in this chair next to me, you would want them to be represented. You would want them to be represented to the best of my ability. You would want the truth to come out. You would want justice to be served. And therefore, it is your role as the juror to treat this person sitting next to me like your loved one.
And in that regard, you mentioned Puffy. We're going to get around to that, but I want to just touch upon something a little bit more local and timely, and that is there was this week a high-speed chase. There were 4 young folks in a car. The allegation is that 3 of them had stolen something from a local, I believe, Walmart, maybe Target. I'm not sure. That's irrelevant. They jumped in the car. The police took chase. The chase got up to perhaps 100 miles an hour through parts of Montgomery County and ended when the car crashed headlong into the wall of a home. and 3 of the 4 occupants were killed at the scene of the accident. A 4th is in the hospital fighting for their life. You know, I think back, I'm not saying that I engaged in anything like that, but I think back to the stupid stuff I did as a child. You know, these were high school students. And I wonder how so many of us survived that time in our lives.
Yeah. Been there, done that. Yeah.
Our brains were not fully formed. I'm not sure when that happened for me, but it was not in my teens. I can tell you that.
And the medical science will tell you that it's probably not until 25, at least in males. And that applies to how they're starting to look at the death penalty and treating juveniles and all of that. But to go back to your point in the civil aspect of it, as a criminal defense attorney, one of my questions would be, does it matter to you the responsibility, or does the driver have a responsibility or a culpability?
Well, I will tell you,
what's the police role to pull back and et cetera?
I'll tell you this. I was watching social media this week. This because I wanted to see how people were reacting to this story. And so many people, their first statement was they got what they deserved.
They deserve to die for stealing from Walmart?
Yes, that was social media. Social media was they wouldn't have been in that situation had they not engaged in that behavior. What are we going to do? The police have to stop crime. I want to be able to go to my Walmart or Target and not be scared that somebody's going to be engaged in theft. I don't want to pay extra money because theft happens, and on and on and on it goes.
These are the comments you were reading.
Yes.
Yeah. So 3 young people deserve to die.
Well,
You are not inconvenienced.
I don't think that.
No, of course not.
I do not think that.
These were the comments.
These were, yes. And it shocked me to some extent. I'm interested in our listeners. Who out there takes that position that these folks got what they deserved? If you hadn't done the crime, you wouldn't have been involved in that chase. I want to show you the other side of that. And that is... You all right there, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right. Sir, don't worry. That's why, you should have a little sip of something.
Yeah.
Something. Anyway, there is regulations in all the departments, okay? But they're individually, there are regulations that are voted upon by communities. So Philadelphia has regulations that may be different than, East Town Township in Chester County, and so on. Each one has their own, but they all should have some regulations, some rules that the police follow with regard to high-speed chases. Pennsylvania has more high-speed chases than New Jersey, like 3 to 1, and people every year. Folks die in high-speed chases. So they come up with these regulations. Typically, it is if somebody has engaged in criminal behavior which risks the life of others, then you can engage in a high-speed chase. So if you've got a gun battle and somebody jumps in their car and they've got their weapon with them and they take off, hey, no, there's no limit then. You have to do whatever you have to do because that person is a threat to the police, to the general population, and it warrants the most extreme attempts to stop them and lock them up. On the other hand, if your taillight's out and you take off from the police, and that's all the police know is that you've got a violation of the motor vehicle code.
That's not enough.
That is not enough for the police to engage in a 100-mile-an-hour chase.
Does it depend on where you live? And maybe not in Philadelphia, but in such and such a county where there's limited crime and something like that is a big deal.
No.
There's nothing else.
No.
Miss such and such, I don't know. Neighbors feel a certain way about crime in different places, different counties.
Well, that's the thing. It's not how people feel about crime because the police have to be above that kind of emotional engagement. They've got to be cool, calm, and collected and weigh the pros and cons. It's not easy to do sometimes when you're in the heat of battle, but it's something that we expect our police to do.
Well,
go ahead.
I've heard. Well, I remember when you had an incident where someone did something and you gave chase.
I did.
And the police said, that's not what you should do.
Right.
Right.
And I
made sense.
Yes, and in that moment, and I'm not a police officer.
Right,
I'm not trained to have my emotions under control under those circumstances. But and it wasn't 100 miles an hour. I was going, maybe
but your car
40
was
or
more
50.
than capable,
Whatever
if
the
need
speed
be.
limit was, you were doing.
Whatever the speed was I was doing, criminal defense attorney.
Right. You were following the speed.
Very good.
I pulled over. I listened to the police. I
Right.
pulled over and I stopped.
All right, however-
And here's the thing. I was able to get the license plate pretty quickly. The police can get the license plate of the car they're chasing pretty quickly and then stop. And then they can find them. I mean, they can find the car. Okay. They can do an investigation. It didn't need to go the way it went. These four.
Not to mention, I'm sure every Walmart has 900 cameras
everywhere, inside and outside in the parking lot.
You haven't said anything yet about it was an armed robbery or a shoplifting.
Yeah, it was a shoplifting.
Yeah.
If it was an armed robbery.
We got 3 kids dead because they stole.
Yeah, whatever.
But they boosted some stuff, some hats or clothes or jewelry, maybe some jewelry. I doubt it because that's always in case. But yeah.
Yeah. Whatever it was they took, it wasn't, as you said, and I agree, it wasn't a crime that warranted the most extreme punishment we have to met out. And the police, it's
not the police's role to punish.
No, it is not.
Well, I've heard this on the street. You see someone get in your car, steal it, drive off. Do you or do you not want the police to follow that guy?
Again, you do want that.
Right.
But if that person has not committed a violent crime and that person poses no imminent threat of bodily injury to the public.
Well, he's driving a stolen car very fast.
He's driving that car fast because he's being chased. Or is he just driving that car fast?
And is it more dangerous for one car to be going fast or 3?
These things matter in court, don't they?
And what happens when it's not the victim, not the perpetrator who is killed, but it's an innocent victim who's crossing the street and it's killed by the person fleeing because they're fleeing at a high rate of speed because they're being chased, or maybe they've been killed by the police who are chasing at a high rate of speed this fleeing car, one or the other. Does that change your opinion about high-speed chases when it's the innocent person whose life is taken because of the high-speed chase?
I think in terms of living in big cities with police budgets, certain cities, for instance, have these helicopters. At some point, the car can disengage, and because you're not going to outrun the helicopter,
or radio
or anything like that. So
if I can just circle back, Dean, and go back to the civil culpability.
Yes.
Tell me what you're thinking about that.
In Pennsylvania, if there's an argument to be made that it's a violation of our civil rights, then there's no limit. If it's a negligence only claim in Pennsylvania, you're capped at $250,000 per person, $1 million for the incident in total. And so if you had 4 persons who were in that vehicle who brought a claim against the city for negligence, you're looking at just $250,000 per person.
Per person.
I've talked about that cap on damages in Pennsylvania and how unfair it is and how our politicians need to change that, because that's the case even if the city has committed negligence, not in this forum, but in any forum. They have no responsibility beyond $250,000, no matter how mangled and deformed you might be as a result of the Commonwealth's negligence. Even if it's against the city of Philadelphia, it's $500,000 limit per person. And that's kind of laughable, because the Commonwealth actually has less responsibility than the city does.
And
now, if that happened in New Jersey, There's no limit.
We've had the discussion.
Yeah.
So this is a legislative issue.
It is.
And they're the ones that have to change that.
But if you can show that the police, first of all, they may have violated their own regulations. So if the police force that engaged in this chase had regulations to only have a high-speed chase if the person has committed some grievous crime like murder, rape, etc., and the police believe that they're an imminent threat to the general public, then they're permitted to engage in that. In this case, it seems pretty obvious none of that applied. If they have regulations, then they violated their own regulations, and they will be found culpable for that behavior, civilly culpable. They may also be, and this flips onto your side, they may also be criminally culpable.
So talk to me a little bit about, in terms of who you're looking at as possible entities to sue. You're looking at the state, you're looking at the city, you're looking at the particular police district, you're looking at the township.
You're looking at the officers and the police district where the crime was, where the actions were engaged in. You're looking at the Commonwealth if and only if the Commonwealth was likewise engaged in that chase, like the state police. Mm-hmm. But if it was strictly a local entity, a local police force, then that's the police force you're looking at.
What is the police
force? And it's the subdivision. So if it were Easttown Township, and it wasn't, folks, so don't hate on Easttown Township. But if it was Easttown Township and their police department, then the township and the police department would be responsible.
Talk to me a little bit about, let's say it happened in Montco. That police force is responding. They're driving 100 miles an hour, and then at some point we cross into Delco. What's Montco's responsibility once they hit that line? What's Delco's responsibility?
Well, again, whoever's engaged. So if there is let's say there's a police force for Lower Merion Township.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
If Lower Merion Township proceeds into Chester County and Chester County picks up on that chase, then you would have both entities responsible.
Does Lower Merion have the authority to pursue into Chester County?
They may have the authority to pursue into Chester County if and only if they believe that the person was an imminent threat to the general public.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
215-227-2727. I mean, as a parent of children who have done dumb things in their lives, I just can't even imagine the phone call that you get for that.
No, absolutely not. And I have 4 young adults.
And they've done dumb things.
And I can't imagine the phone call you get.
No, and that's not to say that we don't care if our kids are boosting Calvin Klein underwear at Target. We do. Whatever it is. Yeah, and they should pay the consequences, the appropriate consequences for that crime if they engaged in it. But it's not the loss of life. Right. And kids do that when they run. We all have. I mean,
I got hit by a car in 1971 coming home from school because my parents were going to take me to the airport to see the Jackson 5 coming to Philadelphia. So I see them standing on the porch. I'm excited. I just ran out into the street. Bam.
Hit by a car.
My father saw it. My mom's at work. So I'm just thinking, now I remember, imagine that phone call. Your son was just hit by a car. And that's all she knows. So then you hear this type of stuff. You don't ever want to get that call.
No. And so, I encourage the families of the victims of what appears to be a police chase to at least engage an attorney to investigate that and get answers. Because as you said, sometimes, it's the empathy and it's the investigation that leads to the answers to satisfy not only the victim of the matter, but their family as well.
And I presume that it needs to be done quickly because you want evidence, you want videos, you want pictures, you want all of that preserved.
Yes. The quicker they engage a law firm to represent them, the more evidence will be preserved to get answers.
Is youthful inexperience a good defense?
A defense to what? To a crime?
A crime. They're kids. Come on, kids don't know any better. You didn't. Is that a defense? Is that?
It's not a defense in the way I'm presuming that you mean. It is certainly mitigation,
Okay.
right? And you certainly use that as you're talking to law enforcement and or courts to say, okay, this is a young kid. They're doing dumb stuff. You did dumb stuff. I did dumb stuff. Let's figure out how to make sure, number one, the behavior is corrected, but number two, this doesn't follow and scar them and prohibit them from living productive lives as an adult.
All right, folks, listen, we're unbelievably, this first half of the show is over. We're going to be back in 2 minutes after my sponsors have their way with you. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll be talking to you during the break, and we'll be back in 2 minutes.
What I think is telling is what you said.
We've got a YouTube question, and I hope they can hear us during the break.
Hey, guys.
Okay. Keenan from YouTube wants to know, when do you absolutely have to give ID to law enforcement? There is conflicting information on social media.
This is my answer, and this is always my answer. I don't care when you have to. Your job is to get home safely. Your job is to get home as quickly and efficiently as you can. Your job is to get back to your loved ones, your community.
And so in that regard, what's your advice?
What's the
Just
problem with giving the ID? Give the ID.
So do not engage in needless conflict with the police.
Not on the street.
Right.
Show them your ID. Show them you haven't done anything wrong. Get home and call an attorney and say,
Survive the encounter.
Right. I think they misbehaved. I think they did something illegal and inappropriate, and have an attorney deal with it. Your job is to get home. That's always my answer.
All right, Keenan, I hope that satisfies you. You know, I think when the police, I would say when the police stop you for whatever reason, you have an obligation to, if they ask for your ID, to give it. I don't think you have an obligation to testify against yourself. You don't have to answer any questions.
Any questions.
Any questions.
You don't have to talk about where you're coming from.
Not
where
only
you're
do
going.
you not have to, you probably should not.
Absolutely.
But
But you do have an obligation to get home safely.
Yes.
You're not going to win a fight on the street with the police. More likely than not, you're not going to win an argument on the street with the police.
All right, so let's get some phone calls.
So you have to get these phone calls out the way so that the calls that you want to come through in response to.
Keenan.
Right.
Hello, everyone.
All right, here we go.
YouTube, thank you for listening and watching.
Need more legal answers? Here's more Court Radio with your host, Dean Whitesmith.
Yes, good morning. Welcome back. We are live in the studio with my friend Ken Edelin, criminal defense attorney extraordinaire. Welcome back, Kenny.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here.
We've been talking about that high-speed chase in Montgomery County, but we're going to move on right after we take some listeners. Okay. By the way, you see this, folks? You know, the guys, the folks on YouTube, you can see this.
You want to explain the designation?
What is this?
So this is my fraternity hat, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, this is the Omega sign. 92 is the year that I pledged. This is my chapter, Alpha Omega, and I was the number 5. I was the 5th person online.
Wow,
So
that's
the significance of the hat.
Would it be a violation for me to wear that hat?
Yes.
I would have to tackle you.
Tackle me.
Right
You
here on
can't do that, Dean.
Okay, I'm not going to go
We're
there.
both too old to be rolling around on the floor, so let's not do that.
All right. Let's take a caller. How about Ernest, line 3, tactic.
Yes.
Hi, Ernest.
My name is Ernest.
Welcome to the
Hello.
show. Welcome to the show, Ernest.
Long-time listener, and you've helped me out before. My question is, I'm a tour guide in Philadelphia. I'm hosting kids from New York, and our last stop was going to a Wawa, because they don't have Wawas in New York. I have all white students. I'm an African-American. We're in Wawa, and there's a Caucasian elderly gentleman using all kind of profanity and expletives to my students. So my first teacher, which is also Caucasian, she asked the gentleman to stop. And he continues, and he intimidates her. So she steps off, and then I come in, and I have my name tag on. We're all wearing name tags to relate. And I asked the gentleman, would you please not say these things to my kids, and you could go to the front of the line. He still continues. Then the Wawa cashier calls the police over, and the police take me out of Wawa and throw me out. My teachers that were all with me, which were all Caucasian, they filed the complaint. Have my civil rights been violated like the guys were at Starbucks?
Good question. First of all, it isn't Wawa that threw you out. It was the police. So you probably would not have a claim against Wawa. Sounds like they didn't do anything that I would find objectionable. If they thought there was a commotion that might escalate, they brought the police in, not necessarily against you. But then the police make a decision, and they pick you out, and it seems you're saying they picked you out because of your race, and they throw you out of the Wawa, nobody else. Is there a claim?
Profiling?
Well, they didn't put hands on you, I would assume. They didn't cause a battery. They said,
word,
what? Go ahead.
if I said one word, they would have put their hands on me.
If.
The object is to shut up and keep it moving.
Exactly. You did the right thing. I'm not saying you did exactly what I would have done, and probably everybody else in the studio would have done. Well, maybe not Manuel. It would have been.
I would have called you, bro.
You should have called.
It would have been a different story, I think, if they had placed hands on you.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that they didn't, and I'm happy that you didn't allow them to by escalating it. You de-escalated it. Is there a claim against the police? Probably not.
No, nothing.
Well, everyone filed a complaint.
Yeah, a complaint is
I'm the only
fine.
one that did not file a complaint.
You should probably, and maybe you open an investigation internally for the police to look at the behavior of the officers who were assigned, and maybe punish them in some way, or put a discipline in their personnel file. That sounds to me like what should happen here. And there's certainly tapes and of the incident. I'm sure if people filed complaints, Wawa probably preserved it. And those tapes might show that that they were wrong in the way they handled it, and you may make them better officers, and you may make the department a better place for folks whose skin color looks more like you than me. So yeah,
Police,
go ahead, Ernest.
The police were only following the directions of the cashier that said, he's the one causing our problem. Take him out of here.
Wow.
And I asked the officer,
Well, there you
and
go. That's a
everyone
little
standing
different.
around, what did I do? What did I do? And he said, that cashier said, you must get out of Wawa right now.
That's a different wrinkle there.
And everyone else is yelling, no, it's this guy over here. It's this guy over here.
Yeah.
And
Well,
the police officer just ignored everyone.
Yeah.
But I don't want any police officer to be disciplined over anything like this, because they are great guys.
Well, that's nice. And the way you've now described it, I would say I still don't think there's probably a civil cause of action against Wawa, but I'm less convinced of my first position than I was when we started, when I thought it was the police that were kind of starting that fight. It seems like you should file a complaint with Wawa. And I think, but again, I'm not there. I don't see what's going on, but the tapes should tell the story. And if the cashier engaged in racist profiling of some sort, then I think you should file a complaint with Wawa. Does it arise to the level of bringing a civil action and retaining attorneys? Probably not. Probably not. Because then you have to wonder also why the police even got involved in it. But I guess they didn't really have much of a choice. They're there. They're brought there. They're just trying to de-escalate the situation and get everybody back on their way. Yeah.
Ernest, you work as a tour guide for one of the bus companies?
No, I'm independent,
Good for
and
you.
I do work for the bus companies.
I used
And
to
the
work
bus
for Big
company.
Bus. I've had that problem with teams from another city.
Then you
in
know who
Wawa.
I am. Then
I think
Then
I
you know
do.
who I am.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, I was with
only-
Big
well, I
Bus
was one of
some
the
years
only
back.
black tour guides.
Ernest,
I've been doing this for 20-something years.
Yeah, yes.
we got to move on, Ernest. Thank you so much for
Okay,
listening to
and
us,
also,
sir.
Your subject of those children with
Yes.
the car.
Yep.
What adult gave them access to that automobile?
That's a good question.
What adult gave them access to that automobile?
Or
Probably
whether-
one of their parents.
Or whether it was stolen.
Or maybe, no, it wasn't stolen.
It wasn't
wasn't
stolen.
We didn't hear
Oh.
any story about a stolen car.
Gotcha.
You have to wait for the investigation.
Yeah, that's true. That is absolutely true. But you want to get ahead of the investigation by participating in it, and that's why the parents need to engage attorneys now, not later. Ernest, thanks for calling us, sir. Have a great Saturday.
So I have no case, then you're saying?
I don't believe so at this point. No.
Okay.
But that
Thank
doesn't
you.
mean don't file a complaint with Wawa. That doesn't mean don't
Yeah.
follow up and make sure,
For the record.
number
Well,
one,
who
you
do
get
I
treated
file a
properly
complaint
next.
With, though?
I,
I'm never going back to Wawa. And
that's,
I'm never taking anyone back to Wawa.
yeah, that's another.
Write them a letter and tell them that. Because of the way I was treated, you were going to lose money. You were going to lose a busload of money
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
because of the way I was treated.
Literally a busload of money. You may get satisfaction. Wawa may call you. They may investigate. They may apologize. They may
Give you
uh,
gift
Take
cards.
action
Tell
against
them what
take
they-
action against that employee.
they may take
Yeah.
action against
Okay.
that employee. All of those things are on the table, and I'm not suggesting you shouldn't engage in that kind of line of behavior.
Okay, I'm going to take that procedure in process. And last week, that was a friend of mine that called you that you helped out with getting the money from his mother that passed away.
I thank you
You
for
helped him out very much.
Thank you, Ernest. Thank you so much for.
All right. Right now, I'm at Black Men in the Media at WHYY.
There you go.
All right.
A little plug for you, Ernest. Be well. Take care, and thanks for
All right,
listening.
thank you, guys.
Take care.
Take
All
care,
right,
Ernest.
thank you.
Ernest-
Bye-bye. I'll hear it again next Saturday.
Ernest reminds me that we have a live show coming up on June the 21st.
Yeah, we do.
Saturday, June the 21st, right here in the studio, live for our listeners. If you want to participate and be a part of that audience, I encourage you to send me an email today, dean@myphillylawyer.com. Tickets are going fast. It will be sold out. You will have to get on the next bus if you don't make this one.
Listen to you with this segment.
215-227-2727. Give us a call. All right, let's talk to another listener. How about, let's see, how about Anonymous? Line 2, Anonymous. Are you still?
How you doing?
Hey, how are you?
All right. I'm on hands-free.
Hands free. You sound beautiful. What's
All right.
what's your
Hands
question?
up. Hands free.
All right. This is it. I'm speaking on my wife and a coworker. She works for a rehab / retirement home, and she's a cook. And the way they're getting paid, like they're missing a vacation. They say they get paid for vacation, and they never get paid for vacation. Right. So I asked her to get in touch with the corporation. I go through HR. Well, HR ain't doing nothing. So they told her that she got an 8-hour job, but they encouraged her to take her break, which would take it to 8.5. So she said, well, no, I might as well just go and do my straight 8 hours. So now they deduct a half an hour from her 8 hours, and now she's getting paid 7.5 hours. And they just keep doing stuff like that.
All right,
And I'll
here's the answer. Who do you turn to? Who do you turn to in a situation like this where you're not getting your wages paid? You send me an email to dean@MyPhillyLawyer. I've got attorneys who that's all they do is wage and hour litigation. And when that bad behavior is being done to the entire workforce of a company, they're happy to get involved even on smaller cases because it kind of cumulatively adds up to being something. And so feel free to send me an email to Dean at MyPhillyLawyer, and I will get you in touch with the law practice that focuses their attention on wage and hour claims. This is something that some attorneys find very interesting.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah, I find it interesting, too. And the thing about, can I mention something about the young guy that got killed?
Please.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, you can't really do too much for it. But like I told my grandson the other week, I said, for one thing, even if you was involved in that little bit of theft, whatever, candy bar, whatever, you also have to realize you don't let another person control your life, meaning choose death, life or death. So I don't think all them young kids in there really chose to be in that car for death. They might have been in there for the robbery, but you can't just figure your friend is going to be your friend and he'll never do nothing. And next thing you know, you're involved in it.
Well, that's true. I mean,
I think
obviously, it was the driver of the vehicle that was fleeing. We don't know if the others were encouraging him to, or they were screaming, "Stop! Stop! Stop!" We don't know that.
Right. I was involved in something like that, and I was the passenger, and lo and behold, I grabbed that fool neck and the steering wheel at the same time. Sometimes you might have to. If I'm just speaking, for kids that might be doing bad things, because yes, I was a kid and I did a lot of bad things. Just don't let that person choose your life or death.
And it goes back to what our parents and grandparents told us. You got to be careful who you hang out with. You got to choose your friends wisely. You are going to be associated with who you hang out with.
Yeah.
Right. Those are life choices that are hard to make as a young person. So it is up to us who are raising them, who are mentoring them, who are trying to guide them, to impart that.
I'll tell you, one of the best decisions I ever made as a child was when I listened to some other friends in the neighborhood who said, "Hey, come along with us to this Boy Scout meeting." It put me on a track that I never would have been on if I hadn't listened to them and hooked up with them. And it was one of the healthiest things I did as a child, scouting.
I was there. Yeah.
Eagle Scout, Dean Weitzman, merit badges, working toward a goal, learning to, have delayed gratification, learning to lead other boys, and on and on and on. The lessons I learned in that process were life-saving lessons, because I, too, made some really bad decisions.
I think three of us jumped in a car once or twice we shouldn't have been in. Come on.
And you made that one decision changed your life.
Yes.
Because you could have certainly made another decision. And what we often find out, certainly in my world, the criminal defense world, most people are sitting before a judge or a jury with criminal charges based on an event that was 2 minutes, 5 minutes. 5-minute decision, a 5-minute act has changed the course of your life forever. You have to teach people, we have to teach children decision-making skills, conflict resolution skills, life skills.
Yeah.
And it's easier to do that, as you said, when you're surrounded by people who are making good decisions.
And it's easier to do that when you are in environments that provide that type of mentorship, where you have the resources and the outlets.
Let's segue for a moment, please, because one of the reasons I brought you on is to help us understand what's going on with the Diddy trial. So this man is potentially going to go to jail for the rest of his life. What is it that he's done? I mean, it sounds like he's a despicable human being. Okay.
That's not enough, right?
Right. Is that enough? Is that the crime he's being charged with? He sounds like he was trying to control all these folks around him in a sexual way, and to just play with them, really in a very ugly, nasty way. Is that a crime?
So first of all, I have to start with the caveat that I have not watched and or listened to a minute of this.
Same here.
This is just, that's not my thing. I don't get into it. I don't have the patience, the energy, or the interest.
I don't know how you avoid getting snippets of it on social media.
I've seen snippets on social media, but I was just talking to a father all last week who's scared to death the police are going to kick in his door and arrest his son for rape. I don't have time to worry about whether Diddy had 100 or 1,000 bottles of baby oil. I don't care about that. That's
It's funny how that little tidbit everyone knows about.
But whatever. So, but to answer your question, Diddy has been charged with a federal RICO violation. RICO is racketeering, influence, corrupt organizations.
What exactly is that? Break that down.
So RICO was designed and it was a tool put in place by the federal government to make it easier for them to go after the mob guys, corrupt organizations, right? So if you are the top, the CEO, and you have managed to distance yourself because of your power, your influence, your money from the guys that are actually on the street, on the corner, doing the crimes, this is a vehicle, this is a mechanism for the federal government to still go after you. You are using your power, your influence, your organization to commit these crimes, even though you've been able to distance yourself from them. And so it started off with the mob guys, Yes, you're big time over here, but you got guys on the dock stealing the stuff, or you have the truckings, or you have the whatever. It's now morphed into going into in the other organizations. And so what I suspect is going on is that even if we're saying Puff himself, Diddy himself is a bad person, part of what they are going to look at and are going to be required to prove is that he is using his organization to help facilitate that.
What is the crime he's helping to facilitate?
It's probably underage prostitution. It's probably drugging people, sexual assault while somebody is under the influence. It's probably shipping people in across state lines for sexual gratification.
Trafficking.
Trafficking and facilitating those types of behaviors. Yes, sir.
No, well, I'm thinking from state line, it matters if you're a certain age or not when the state line piece. Or does it? No.
No, not necessarily. Because even if we're in the same state, I can't be 16.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
And you be 35. Even if we're in the same state, you can't slip me a Mickey. And then I wake up and you've done all different types of things to me.
Okay.
And what I also suspect is that, again, going back to the organization, they are going to tie it into his companies. So if I'm having all these illicit parties, all these lewd parties, doing all this illegal conduct, and paying with bad boy record checks,
that's a violation.
Now we're dealing with the company itself. Now that is the corrupt organization.
Gotcha.
Right?
Rather than if he's coming out of his own pocket with a couple, that's one thing. But if the company is the umbrella and is funding all this,
if he's coming out of his pocket, then Diddy, you have raped X.
Right.
But if you're now paying for it and it is part of your corporate structure, now it is a RICO. Now it is the corporate organization that's involved.
This jury is not sequestered. Does that benefit the federal government, benefit Diddy, benefit anybody? You're going to answer that when we come back. We have a 2-minute break. We'll be right back. We're talking to Ken Edelin about the Diddy trial.
I didn't pay attention. I didn't know that. The jury hasn't been sequestered, so they're open to all the news. They're open to everything.
The news, but I mean, typically they don't want to sequester jurors because that's, number one, a big inconvenience to them. But number two, it is a
Do I want to be heard? I always want to be heard.
Right? So,
but I don't have a question before me for the YouTube
unless
crowd.
I'm concerned about whether or not Diddy and or his people are going to try to get to the
They're
jurors
talking
to
amongst
influence
themselves.
them.
I'm going to...
Sorry.
I don't know what that's.
I
all
do
right.
have a
Go
question, though. The pardoning, federal and state, they're different.
Absolutely.
The felon POTUS can pardon him, and
Yes.
all the federal stuff goes away. But the state stuff.
Well, he's not being
There is no
prosecuted
state.
by a state. There's no state prosecution.
There is no
now,
state
there could be a
prosecution.
state prosecution following the federal prosecution, but currently there is no state
So
prosecution.
it's all federal.
Yes.
Right now, yes.
It's federal now.
Okay.
The case he's dealing with now is a federal case. But where these different acts happened, each state has jurisdiction,
Well, is double jeopardy apply?
not with state and federal.
So
So he can be
folks,
charged.
here's the key. So you might have heard the term double jeopardy. You can't be tried for the same crime twice. So if he's found not guilty on federal criminal charges, double jeopardy does not prevent the states from bringing the same identical state charges and trying him all over again.
And just to put even a finer point, if he's found guilty of the federal cases, that does not stop the state from bringing their own charges.
So double jeopardy only applies within the governmental entity. State can't bring another charge that they've already brought that you've been found guilty or not guilty on, but a state charge can be brought when the first charges were federal.
No matter what happens, his reputation is ruined. It's over.
His reputation is ruined.
Business, it's all done. Yeah.
It should be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, we'll see
Unfortunately,
whether or not
oftentimes
it is, but
it's
it should
not, but yeah.
I don't see how he can do anything else after this.
be.
It's
Unless
over.
he got enough money to sit back and wait. Time he'll
Or
all
just
wounds.
disappear like Russell Simmons. Just disappear. Don't be around. We're back.
We're back. We're live. Welcome back to Court Radio. I am your host, Dean Weitzman, every Saturday morning right here on 100.3 WR&B.
And Classics 107.9.
Well, the legal's out of the way, and folks, we're coming to the end of our hour. We're with Ken Edelin, criminal defense attorney, cut his teeth in the Defender's Office of Philadelphia and ultimately the Federal Defender's Office, and then had a short stint at MyPhillyLawyer, is now on his own. How's that been for you?
It's going well. It's going well. I like the freedom. I like the autonomy. I don't have much good to say about my boss, but at least I know who he is.
Do you get a suit on every day?
I try not to.
Yeah.
I try not to. I was nervous when you told me you now have cameras in here. I said, well, can I still wear my hoodies or what's the deal?
Yeah, we are permitted to wear our hoodies
I
here
appreciate that.
in the Court Radio world.
We need to have hoodie day because we all do that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Before we went to break, we were talking about sequestering a jury. There's no sequestration in the Diddy trial, but it's so out there in the public eye, and so much is being written that it's almost impossible for these jurors not to see some of this in their real life. Is that benefiting anybody?
The judge will admonish them 100 times a day. Do not read social media. Do not read the paper. Do not listen to anybody. Do not talk to anybody. Like you said, that's impossible.
Impossible.
But the decision to sequester a jury most often goes to whether or not the jurors will be in danger. Am I, as Puffy, who has enormous resources, going to send somebody over to try to intimidate a juror, try to pay off a juror, any of that? That's when more often than not the sequestering comes in, because it's a huge inconvenience to the jurors, it's a huge inconvenience to their family, and it's a huge expense to the system. So that is a last resort.
It does either of the parties, the federal government or Diddy, benefit from the lack of sequestration?
Nobody is going to like Diddy based on what they hear and see in the media.
So the federal government benefits to an extent.
To an extent. The spin from Diddy's folks is going to be, yes, you don't have to like him. Yes, what he was doing was terrible, but it's not RICO. Yes, no, he should not have been doing all of this stuff.
But it was consensual.
But until they prove, number one, that it wasn't consensual, and number two, somebody was underage, you don't have to like him. He didn't violate.
You know
Or
how
whether
that,
he did stuff just as a jealous boyfriend instead of,
There's
you know,
that.
because he did a lot of things himself. So he didn't use his organization. He did it himself. He allegedly
firebombed the car. Yeah.
He's the one that,
but he's not being charged
right,
with those.
Exactly.
Those would be the state crimes. So what I'm presuming is happening is the state is sitting back. They're watching the feds. They're going to see how that turns out. And then they'll make a decision whether or not to go forward with their own stuff.
Right, because not all of this arises to the level of a federal crime. The federal crime is the RICO crime.
And that question is going to be extortion. The question is going to be bribery. The question is going to be that type of thing.
And RICO stands for what again?
Racketeering Influenced Corrupt Organizations. RICO.
That's going to be a hard pitch for the jury, though. Yes, he may have committed these other crimes, but that's not what you're being asked to prosecute him on, find him guilty of. You're being asked to find him guilty of this very specific, and whether the jury is going to have the capacity to understand that distinction is going to be a question.
And you have to explain that from the very beginning, even before the jury is impaneled. most often you get what's called voir dire. You get to talk to the jurors as you're trying to pick them, and you get to ask them questions. If I tell you that he is a bad person, are you still able to listen to the facts of the case and apply those facts to this specific law? You're not here to decide he's guilty of being a bad person. You're here to decide whether or not he violated this particular law. These are the elements. What I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, if you happen to be picked for this jury, is that his conduct does not violate these elements. I'm not asking you to like him. You don't have to like me. But I want you, but your job, the oath that you will take, says you will apply the facts to the law.
Well, okay, we're going to see how that goes. I say...
What say you, Dean?
I say he's going to be so disliked, they're going to find a reason. They're going to find a way to come around to the conclusion that he violated the law.
Violated some law.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the RICO. Not necessarily.
If it's
the
not
big
that,
well, I mean, they, and I don't know what else he's been charged with, but there are underlying offenses that they can convict him of and not convict him of the crimes that will keep him in jail forever. And who knows, halfway through, he might say, all right, that's enough. Go talk to him, give me a deal.
yeah.
Yeah, a deal is
There is
always
that,
possible.
yeah.
And in the civil side, settlements occur right up to the moment that the judge instructs the jury and they go out to deliberate. And even sometimes while they're deliberating,
Right.
the sides get together and say, all right, let's come up with a settlement.
And that happens in the criminal world as well. I've had any number of cases where the jury is back there deliberating. They start asking questions, and one side or the other gets nervous about the questions that are being asked.
Right.
And so then we come to a plea deal. I've had any number of cases. Pick the jury, or the jury panel comes in, and we haven't even picked them yet. My client looks at them and says, they're not going to be able to be fair. Can't give me a deal.
215-227-2727. If you have a legal problem that you need a solution to, feel free to give us a call at any time, day or night. And there you go. That's Ken's. He's got to stand up and walk now.
I know what that
Absolutely right.
He's been sitting too long.
Look, so I can wear my shirts like Manuel over here. Sun's out, guns out.
Oh my goodness! We got a camera on you today. You got to see, folks. You got to see Manuel's arms. He's swelled up
Show 'em
like
to 'em.
unreal. He is.
it's not that
Yeah, he's swinging clubs. Okay, we'll be back next week, folks. Same time, same place, and I look forward to seeing you. Have a great Saturday.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys. Are we still on? We're still on YouTube, right?
We're still on YouTube for another second until he pushes that button.
You came out in '92. You got in the defender's office in '96, right?
Yes.
Cameras weren't as elaborate as they are now. Is this helping your business, so to speak?
Helping.
Will it help or hindrance now?
Well, that's a trick question, though. Helping my business, yes, because more
Yeah.
people are getting in trouble, so they have to
How
come
many
see
people
me.
were listening this week?
Is it making my
We're
job
live.
more
We're still
difficult?
on?
Infinite.
That's the question.
Huh?
Yeah.
Infinite.
It's making it more difficult,
More difficult.
not easier.
Because
Bye,
I had a
YouTube. See you
mom
next
call
Saturday.
me the other
Please
day
tell your family and
because
friends to watch on
her
YouTube. We're trying to
16-year-old
build the
got
channel, and
arrested
you
'cause
are.